Hi everybody. In this video, let us see what are the difference between internal check and internal control and the difference between internal check and internal audit and the difference between statutory audit and internal audit. First, let us see what is the difference between internal check and internal control. So on the basis of scope, internal check is having a narrow scope and internal control, it comprises of overall system of control. On the basis of objective, internal check prevents occurrence of errors and frauds and internal control ensures the compliance of all the various policies and procedures. On the basis of flexibility, internal check is less flexible and internal control is reviewed occasionally. So this is the major difference between internal check and internal control. On the basis of scope, internal check is having a narrow scope. On the basis of scope, internal control comprises overall system of control. On the basis of objective, internal check prevents the occurrence of errors and frauds. Internal control ensures the compliance of various policies and procedures. And on the basis of flexibility, internal check is less flexible, while in case of internal control, it is reviewed occasionally. And let us see what are the difference between internal check and internal audit. On the basis of meaning, internal check is the arrangement of accounting works. On the basis of meaning, internal audit is a review of the operations. When we think about the difference between internal check and internal audit on the basis of objective, internal check minimize the occurrence of errors and frauds. But internal audit, it is easy to detect the errors and frauds if an internal audit is conducted. On the basis of nature, internal check, it is a work conducted on continuous basis, while internal audit is a post-mortem on work already done. On the basis of scope of work, internal check is very limited and internal audit is comparatively wide. On the basis of involvement, internal check, a large number of employees are needed for doing it. In case of internal audit, a small number of persons are only required. On the basis of need of separate staff, there is no such requirement in case of internal check, but a separate staff is needed for doing an internal audit. So these are the major difference between internal check and internal audit. Internal check is the arrangement of accounting work and internal audit is the review of operations. Internal check tries to minimize the occurrence of errors and frauds, while internal audit is helping to detect the errors and frauds. Internal check work is conducted on a continuous basis, but internal audit is a post-mortem on the work already done. The scope of work of internal check is very limited, while the scope of work of internal audit is comparatively wide. In internal check, a large number of employees are involved, but in case of internal audit, a very small number of persons are involved. And for doing internal check, it is not necessary that there should be a separate staff. But in case of internal audit, an internal auditor should be appointed for doing the internal audit. And let us see what is the difference between statutory audit and internal audit. On the basis of appointment, The statutory auditor is appointed by the shareholders, while in case of internal auditor, he is appointed by the management. On the basis of qualification, a statutory auditor must possess formal qualifications, while it is not necessary that an internal auditor should possess all the formal qualifications. On the basis of objective, the main objective of statutory audit is to detect the errors and frauds, while in case of internal audit, it is for early detection of errors and frauds. On the basis of scope of work, statutory audit is determined by the statute, while internal audit is determined by the management. On the basis of conduct of audit, the nature of statutory audit is final and periodic, while the nature of internal audit is continuous. So these are some of the major differences between statutory audit and internal audit on the basis of appointment, on the basis of qualification, on the basis of objective, on the basis of scope of work, and on the basis of conduct of audit. Let us see some other difference between the statutory audit and internal audit. While differentiating on the basis of remuneration, statutory audit is fixed by the statute, while internal audit is fixed by the management. On the basis of status, statutory audit is independent, competent person who is an outsider will be doing the auditing work. While in case of internal audit, an internal auditor is an employee of the concern. On the basis of reporting, the report on submission of auditing is very compulsory, and the report submission is not compulsory in case of internal audit. In case of statutory audit, the auditor may or may not give suggestions to the management. But in case of internal audit, the internal auditor will give suggestions to the management. On the basis of application of test checks, it is applied in case of statutory audit, but it is not applied in case of internal audit. On the basis of attendance of meeting, the statutory auditor is having the right to attend the meeting, but the internal auditor, he does not have the right to attend the meetings. And statutory auditor, on the basis of application of regulation of Act, several regulations are applicable for him, but there is no such regulations applicable for an internal auditor. On the basis of satisfaction, the statutory audit is conducted for making the shareholders more satisfied, but internal auditing is done to satisfy the management. So these are some of the major difference between internal audit and statutory audit. This is all about this video. Thank you all for listening to me.